Board, you're all set.
Okay, well, I'm going to call the Katuitt Water Department Board of Water Commissioners meeting to order, June 16th, 5:45 p.m. All three commissioners in attendance. And we'll start with public comment. We obviously will accept comment on other agenda items going forward, but if anybody has anything they'd like to bring up that's not on the agenda, we'll ask now and we'll ask later as well. And I see Carol's hand up. So go ahead, Carol.
Hello, Carol Zace, 86 Putnam Avenue. Just a couple of things. The civic board, per my request, is going to be rotating people from the board into all these meetings. It was getting to be a little bit much for me to attend 3 meetings plus the own civic meeting. So different people have stepped up. When I don't have fill-ins, you will see me again. But I just wanted to let you know, I appreciated all the public comments, the interaction and the transparency. It's been wonderful, but it's not like I'm saying goodbye. I'm just telling you, there are going to be other people, which will be good for the community, for everybody to start.
Well, Carol, it does sound like you're saying kind of goodbye, and we will miss you whenever you're not here.
It just won't be monthly.
All right. Well, that's fine, but thank you for letting us know. And we want to obviously have as many people here as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And I also, I didn't talk at I don't recall if I said what I wanted to say at the last meeting, but I please hope you guys will vote in the new system, that new systems need wells. It seemed like it was starting to drift away from that. And I just really think that that's important, with the possibility of people applying for exceptions, and increase the rates to encourage stronger conservation. I think a plan to do both would be wonderful, but I truly believe that I've lived in communities that they've gone ahead and done the no new systems without wells, and it works just fine. That's my opinion. And then also to remind you that if you ever do go back into in-person meetings at Freedom Hall, the Civic Association worked with the Prudential Committee to set up a system where you still use the Zoom for those who don't want to come in person, but it also allows you to record the video for future. So that is all set up. But when you go to your first meeting, you might want to, if Jen doesn't know, or, make sure that somebody else is there to show you the setup. That's all.
Well, thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. And we did talk about that in advance of the meeting tonight, and Jen is going to confirm everything, but I think we will go, likely we'll go in person starting next meeting, given the governor's directive and whatnot. But I think I agree with you. If we can facilitate the continued Zoom addition, I think that provides a lot of opportunity. So that's our plan.
Great.
And,
it's so much easier.
It is.
Particularly on a 3-man board, you to know the voices is really hard so to see you guys speaking really helps to identify who it is, or sorry, Chris, didn't mean to leave out.
That's okay.
Yeah, gotcha. No, that's great, Carol. Thank you. And the other comments on the irrigation we are going to address tonight. So let's hold off on that discussion until we get to the agenda item. Anybody else with a public comment?
Yes, Cynthia Gart,
Yes,
94
Cynthia.
School Street. I'm having computer issues, so please bear with me.
No problem.
I just wanted to thank your board because I appreciate your agenda. I appreciate you having public comment at the beginning and end of your meetings, and also staying on top of electing a new chairperson and people to the Policy Advisory and Bylaws Committee. So I want to thank you guys for being proactive. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We really appreciate any and all public comment, and welcome. So stay with us, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. Anybody else?
I'm going to shut off the computer with voice and just go back and listen on the other computer.
Okay.
Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you. Anybody else with a public? Mr. Robinson, Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm going to have to break off a little after 6 to join the Orleans Select Board for about 10 minutes, and then I'll be back. I have to present something to them, so I will truly be Zooming back and forth.
So how long, just so we can plan, Commissioner Robinson, can you give us a rough schedule when you'll think you'll be?
Yeah, well, it should be probably 5 or 10 past 6 for about 10 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, we'll have discussion, but obviously not take any action until you return.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know that. Any other public comment or questions? Okay, hearing none. What I'd like to do for starters is we had a former commissioner, Don Campbell, pass away, and I'd like to take a minute of silence, if we may, think about his service. Okay, thank you. We really appreciate all that have served before us. And I know myself, it's been a tremendous opportunity to provide, an input to the community. And Don, I know I didn't know him personally, but I know that he was a major contributor. So thank you, Don. So next agenda item is the minutes. We've been holding off on this, but I did, for one, look through the minutes and ready to go. So if one of the other commissioners would like to, if you've had a chance to look at them, make a motion on this, I'm happy to entertain.
Happy to move the approval of March, April, and May 2021 minutes of the Water Commissioners.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you for going through those. And Jen, thank you for your excellent job and continue to record those.
Was that for March, April, and May?
I
Yes.
think that was March, April, and May.
Great, thank you.
And so that brings us to the water quality report and the superintendent's report. Chris, why don't you go right ahead?
Sure. So we'll start with the water quality report. All monthly coliform samples were free and clear. We did do some nitrate testing, slightly elevated from last year, which was down from the year before. We're averaging out to like a 2.3 right now. MCL is like a 10, but last year it was like a 2. So we did, I don't know if it's the time of year, what's being, a lot more people around, septic systems being used a little more, but we'll keep an eye on it. I don't think it's anything that we have to do anything right away. We might want to think about after the summer, just checking again, just to see what levels are at, but we do have the money there to do it. So that should be fine. And we did do our half a year test for every 6 months for the MTBE, and they were non-detects on all stations. That's my water quality. Any questions on either one of those? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and Chris, I think with nitrates, I think the Cape Cod Commission's recommendation is that we stay below 5.
Okay.
And I think that's a good goal for us. And we're still well below that, of course.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we're in pretty good shape, but thank you for the update, Chris. Any other questions for Chris on the water quality? Okay, let's hear the superintendent's report, Chris, please.
All right. Superintendent's report for May. In May of 2020, we pumped 16,441,000 gallons of water. And May of 2021, we pumped 20,958,000 for a difference of 4,517,000 gallons. That's quite an increase. That's really high up there. A little shocking to me, but I attribute it to we didn't get a lot of rain. We did get one weekend there that it rained, and I believe in May, but it was pretty nice weather. We had a lot of people, a lot of systems turning on and everything. I did not get to go back and see how wet it was the year before. But that brings me on to something else that I'll mention a little later. We did put in 2 new water services, one over on Shell Lane. Guy's well went on them, and a new house that was built on Route 28. We replaced a service that was a tear down, and they put in a new water service over on Clamshell Point Lane. I put down in here, talked about the intern position that we had talked about a little bit. I had talked to Scott a little bit about this too. One of the superintendents over in Bourne actually sits on the advisory board for the Upper Cape. See if I can find where I got. Here we go. He sits on the advisory council for the environmental studies for the Upper Cape Tech. And there's some people inquiring for any internships on and around for Cape Cod students looking for jobs and everything. And I talked to him today. He said, I know that we have your Scott's kind of description here. Education project you would put down, you would put a little piece of paper together. You can remember it.
Yep,
Last
I
month.
know, sure.
I don't know if you want to add anything to it. I told him I'd talk to you and see if he wanted to reach out to a couple other people that are on the advisory board and see if they want to put anything out for us.
Yeah, I may want to, Chris, thanks for mentioning that. may want to amend that when we get to old business under a source water protection plan.
Yep.
I'll update on some more current, and we may want to expand that scope a little bit, but let's hold
Okay.
off on that discussion.
Okay. The other thing is that we're still in a level 1 drought right now, mild drought. My wells are not replenishing. Now, last month I had told you that I wanted to see if we got any rain or anything, and we did not get any. I guess the Mayflowers I was thinking was going to be May showers. So I'd like to put out the voluntary water restrictions, if you don't mind, and enact those that we usually do in the summertime. Usually it's a lot later before we put it on, but with the well levels where they are, the drought conditions, and pumping that much more water than last year isn't helping. So with your permission, I know that, I don't know if I really need it, but I'd like to get your permission to throw it out there.
I was going to ask if we need a vote on that, but I suspect that we'll have full endorsement on that, but maybe I'll just ask the other commissioners if we want a motion just to support Chris and back up what he's suggesting here.
So we're still level 1, Chris? That's what
Correct. We are.
That was as of when?
That started last month.
So as of last month,
We've hit, and they've continued it. Yeah, they've continued it right now to for this month. There, it's reviewed, I think, once every month to look at. They look at the different levels around that well that's over in Barnstable has not really made a significant drop from last month either, but it's still holding where it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see the rain like we had yesterday and we had the week before, but the way we're pumping, it's going to be hard to recover that level.
It's just, it would make me feel a lot better because I've been noticing that my wells, the drawdown's getting a little lower each time. So that's a little indication that we might be stressing them a little bit.
Yeah.
We are having all 5 stations come on in the morning. When we come walking in, any day like this morning, everything would be on. Any kind of heat indicator from about 3:30 in the morning till about 6:30. All stations are going. The tank just keeps dropping. It doesn't start catching up until about 6:30. Then it starts rising. It starts, and you can see where another station kicks on. It dips, another one kicks on, and it goes through.
I would entertain a motion to support Chris' suggestion that we institute a voluntary restriction.
I'd make that motion.
In a second.
Yeah, make it second. I'd also like to comment that the Lower Cape towns, Dennis, Brewster, Harwich, I know for a fact have mandatory odd even irrigation days. So in other words, the odd street numbers go on every other day, and then the even street numbers go on the intervening days. So they've taken that as a mandatory step. I can't imagine that they get that much less rain than we have over here. So I think that we should be alerting people that would be our next step if the voluntary cutbacks don't help.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? We have a motion seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. Chris, thank you for that.
No
Is there
problem.
anything else in the superintendent's report?
Not really. I just kept in there, we talked about the stipend that, to discuss at one point with, you weren't at the, district meeting. There was a little bit of discussion on that with the firefighters getting
Yep.
it and everything. I think Tom and Mark were both there. There was a little bit of feedback on that through the, district and everything. So I just keeping it in mind out there. That's
Okay,
the
thank you.
non-insurance. Yep.
As we move into old business, I'll just ask Commissioner Robinson, in that you're going to depart soon for 10 minutes. Is there a better way to organize the next couple discussions that might, you're leaving us in when again, Mark? Sorry?
Just a few minutes, probably 5 minutes or
minutes.
so.
So
5 minutes.
is there any suggestion you might have as to what we discuss while you're gone? What will make the most sense here? I don't want to exclude you from this discussion.
I don't have the agenda. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the first one's the irrigation policy, which you're well versed in.
Right.
So maybe we can just go ahead and continue with that while you're gone for 10 minutes, and then won't take any actions, of course, until you come back.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead to Orleans, head off to Orleans.
All right.
And we look forward to your return.
I hope if it's more than 10 minutes, I'll let you know.
No, we understand. We'll
Okay.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
So with that, I'll just quickly introduce, we've been talking about this irrigation policy for quite some time. And we have a draft regulation that maybe I'll ask, thank you. Jen thinks before I do, put it up there. And we've had a lot of good discussion on this. I think where we're at is, again, I'll just put this out there as a recommendation from me, speaking personally. I think to Carol's earlier point, I think there seems to be a fair amount of agreement on restricting or prohibiting new connections. And that was really the first major component. Maybe you could scroll down, Jen, to the actual regulations and maybe make it a little bit larger, if you would, at least for me. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. So I think the first major provision is, to prohibit new connections. And then the second major part of this is, what do we do about existing connections? We've had a lot of discussion about options. And one option, I think there were three options. One is to try to implement best technology, if you will, to minimize. And frankly, I think that's not a bad idea, but I think it will have minimal effect. The other option is a rate change, which would provide an incentive or disincentive for conservation. And then the third option, as you may recall, the most restrictive, was to actually get people off of it over a period of time. So I'm going to suggest at this point, given our prior conversation, that we think about, or my suggestion would be to think about the second one, which is a rate change as an incentive. So what I'm suggesting here tonight would be that we consider the prohibition on new connections and then a rate change to, encourage more conservation and maybe make the option of going on to private well more interesting. And I know we've had quite a few. I don't know if Jen or Chris have any idea of how many, but I know this has been at least, I don't know, in my mind, half a dozen or more of instances that we've heard about where people are doing this already. So it is having some effect, which is, I think, great. People are listening to us. I also want to mention that Jen has done some great work in preparation for tonight's meeting, looking at the effects of various rate changes. And I guess I'd like to ask you, Jen, to present those. We talked about this earlier today. We looked at a couple different scenarios of rate changes and how that, and I want to mention that to me, there are at least two perspectives here. And that is the impacts on the individual homeowner in terms of the incentive to change, but also the change in revenue to the department. Because as I've indicated before, I do think that if we don't do this, we may be destined for more water treatment, which comes with a cost. And so one way to think about this is if people are willing to pay more to pump more, maybe that money goes into paying for more treatment later on. And Jen and I have talked about how those numbers compare, but maybe with that, I'll just ask you, Jen, if you're willing to just kind of show us what you've done.
Sure. And to answer your first question, I actually just had a call before I left today with for a markup for another well going in. They seem to be in the Katuah Bay Shores area. I think they probably passed around a flyer over there.
Okay.
And there's at least a half a dozen private irrigation wells going in that area. So after our last meeting, based on our discussions, I put together some pricing. I'm just moving things out of the way so I can see. Taking our existing price tier, so this top section here is our existing pricing, which increased to $9.70 per 1,000 gallons when you got up over 100,000 gallons. So I wanted to break down the users in that price tier to see where the majority of them fall, and they seem to fall in the 100 to 150,000 gallon range. Taking that, I did a couple of different scenarios because as Scott and I talked about earlier, there may be some households that have quite a few family members or maybe have extended family living there, whether there's an in-law apartment or something that may have some essential domestic household usage that would be high if there was a large number of family members or additional family living in the same household. So we were trying to come up with a scenario that would encourage conservation for non-essential use, but not penalize households that are using water for domestic household use. I ran a couple of different price scenarios using the usage from calendar year 2020 and keeping in mind that it is a 6-month period. And I actually took it for the year and then kind of broke it in half. And so these aren't exact calculations, but they're pretty close. So I did a proposed price tier. So adding some additional usage tiers instead of just everything over 100,000 going 100 to 200 to 300, and then anything over 300. And just of note, our highest user in 2020 used 892,000 gallons in a 6-month period. So I just went as high as 900,000. Taking a new suggested price tier of either $13, $15, $17.50 or $20, and applying those appropriately to those usage tiers, I came up with the max cost in a 6-month period, which would include the $40 minimum use in this ballpark, which would give us an additional projected revenue of 43,000, 62,000, 52,000, or 58,000 for a total of $216,000 in that 6-month period. Taking that a step further, we talked about revamping the price tiers, and after the $7.15 tier going to 15, 20, 25, and 30, which generates an additional $446,000 in that 6-month period. And as Scott was mentioning, if we have to go down the route of a treatment plant, that is about the annual cost of running that treatment plant.
Yeah, I'll just mention that I forget if I talked about this at the last meeting, but I did review an EPA report on PFAS treatment, and also, thinking back to the iron and manganese treatment. Both of those are around $10 million capital costs, annualized around $500K per year to run those systems. So if we believe in any way that the potential, maximum pumping of the system might lead us to either an iron manganese problem or other water quality issues, there might be some connection or trade-off, if you will, between people paying for max pumping versus treatment. So it was interesting that when Jen got back to me with this last scenario, that it came out pretty darn close to the $500,000 per year. So again, myself, I kind of favor the lower rates, the higher rates that are at the bottom of this chart, the 15, 25, 30. And I also want to mention, because Jen and I talked about this and Chris and I talked about this, that obviously, if anybody ever can, if we were able to, if we were to adopt these higher rates to focus on non-essential use, and somebody felt like, well, wait a minute, this is impacting me because I have a large family, I think we're always open, and we can stipulate this in the regulation, that anybody can come in and ask for a waiver or variance, given the fact that they come in and say, hey, I don't have an irrigation system, but I have 10 kids and they take showers and they eat a lot of food. Well, I think my sense is, given our history, that we'd clearly grant a waiver in those situations. So I kind of think where I'm at after thinking about this for almost a year, I guess, that the water rate structure might be the best way to get at this problem, rather than the meters, additional meters, or other techniques we've talked about. So I'll just open it up for discussion at this point. Commissioner Hoppenstadt, if you have any comments, or Chris, or certainly, let's go there first, and then we'll open it up to the public. But I'd like to start with the Commissioner Hoppenstadt, if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think that the rate structure, the increases in rate structure, should be a good disincentive for people to move off of the public water supply for irrigation. I don't know that that's going to happen, because it certainly did not happen the last time we raised the rates. So we assumed that it would, and it didn't at all, in fact.
Right.
So I have a sneaky suspicion that that's going to happen again, that the people that have irrigation systems are going to use the water the way that they want to use the water. And they're going to continue to pump, and we're going to see elevated pumpage rates continue. Unfortunately, that's bumping us up against our permit,
Yeah.
which is a problem.
Well, I guess I would just add, Tom, that the rate structure that was adopted before compared to what Jen is suggesting here is pretty dramatic difference.
Huge.
And I think maybe some of the very high-end people who may not look at their checkbook, let's say, and don't really care, may not affect them, but certainly I think some people will. So it's a good point. I don't think we know, but I think more,
We got to look at the percent, Scott.
Right.
You're looking at less than, you're looking at like 20% of the users, 20% of the water. That's
right,
it,
right.
that you're going to raise the rates on. That's not a big impact to the withdrawals, right? I mean,
Jen, do we have any
so-
numbers on that in particular? Because I think you looked at that a little bit.
Green. So 6, 8, 9, yeah, 10% of the users are up, 10, maybe 23% up and over the 100,000.
Yeah.
But those are that is the big consumption
Mhm.
that would have the biggest impact. And like you said, those are typically the ones that can afford to write the check.
Yeah. So, but maybe it'll work. Maybe it will be helpful and reduce our pumpage, which is what we ultimately have to do, not only for the water quantities, but for the permit, but for the water
Quality, yeah.
associated with a high rate of pumpage in the places where we have our wells. So if we're going to change the rate structure, I think I'm with you on the higher values there.
Okay, yeah.
I'd like to hear Mark's
Yeah.
thoughts on that as well. The other thing is, in terms of a moratorium or ban on any new systems, I could support that, but I'd want to have some systems in place, some means in place where somebody could say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and use potable water, but I am going to put in a separate meter, and that cost is on them.
Yeah.
And that would be a service hookup for us, right? And I'd like to see that service hookup rate go up. So if you want to hook up for irrigation means, that's going to cost you more than hooking up for domestic consumption means.
Yeah.
And
I think my sense is, thank you, Commissioner Hoppenstadt, for those comments, and I agree with everything you've said. Again, my take is, whether it's water quality or, as you correctly pointed out, water quantity, somebody at at the public hearing suggested, why don't we just go out and develop a new water supply? Well, that's a good idea, but it's not as easy as it sounds, and it's very expensive. It comes down to money and time. And certainly treatment is the same. So either way, I think if the goal, if the outcome is that we continue pumping or continue increasing like we have, we're either looking for additional supplies or providing treatment or maybe both. And that's a lot of money. And so to raise that money, I think the water rate structure would do that. And as Jen pointed out, almost $500,000 a year under the higher rates. And it strikes me that that's about the right amount of money that we'd need to either do treatment and or look for a new site. So there seems to be a connection or a nexus between the rates in that case and, sort of how we go forward. I guess I do want to ask Chris and Jen, of the 6 or 8 private well transfers that we've seen, any sense of any or how many of those might have been motivated by the rate structure?
I talked to a guy personally who said he just looked at the comparison and said, I'd be a fool not to do it. He just bought a house in Katuitt and got his first water bill and went, okay, that's it. And saw heard about it and put the well in. He's one of the first guys that I knew did it. Actually, and I believe one of the financial committee members did it also, and probably has saved herself some money.
Okay. Carol, comment? Question?
Yeah, just a quick comment. My husband Adam and I attended the presentation at the Katuitt Library that was put on by a set of well people, or I think they said they were the only well people on the Cape, but and they were saying they were seeing an uptick as well. So it's $5,000 for a basic well, just for putting in the well, digging and putting in the well, and it's $6,800 for the all-purpose one. So if anybody does a soaker zone or a hand watering, they would have to do the $6,800 one to have the computer chip in there. But the good news is you can share it between homes. So,
Okay.
so just so you guys know, so that's the money that you said Chris just said someone did the payback, and you'll get to that payback faster the higher the rates are.
Correct. And when was that? I didn't even know that meeting happened.
Me either.
Yeah, it was who put it on? I think the library put it on. Mary Harrington was the person who spoke, she and her husband. It was on Thursday night, like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, hey.
No,
I wish we had known. I would have loved to have thrown it on the website and everything.
I know. I don't know why it was so under advertised, but there were still at least, there was somewhere between 8 and about 8 people, 8 of us there.
Okay. Yeah, she's one of the people that call us and let us know and has given us a list of what she's done in town. Yeah, there's another couple
right
companies.
around the time that restrictions were being lifted, and so maybe they weren't going full because they didn't want to have to deal with people, so because it was the first indoor meeting at the library. But
yeah, we were told
that's what people are looking at when they're doing the comparison in relation to what Chris was saying.
Yep,
that's all. Hi,
Jen, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, we were told that they couldn't share them between homes because of the electrical pump for pumping the well that has to belong to one person.
That's correct. You can share the well, and you each pay for your own hookup with your irrigation system to your trunk line, and one person takes the electrical meter, which is the least expensive part of the whole thing. So obviously you just take your neighbors out to dinner or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
that's what it was. So it can be done. It's just someone's going to pick up, maybe you alternate years. I do it this year, you do it next year, if you go that way. And it could be more than 2. It could be 3, it could be whatever.
Yeah. Well, why don't I suggest that we hold this conversation until Commissioner Robinson returns. Commissioner Hoppenstadt, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got some more questions and comments.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from Chris about what his thoughts are on if he knows any other districts or if he's ever given it any consideration where we start requiring a separate hookup with a separate meter for irrigation, and that, you know, the homeowner has to pay for that, and we bring in a new line for that.
We do have one, actually one hookup in town that comes off of before the meter, where the 1-inch line comes in. There's a T. One side has a meter on it that just does irrigation right now. That's over at 671 Main with that condo complex with the duplexes. They wanted to have one for the system wide so they could charge the association for it. So there is one out there that we have now. It's more of a cutting the plastic, putting there's some plumbing that has to be done inside. Still, you might not have to do a whole new hookup. You could actually come off that 1-inch line that comes into somebody's house, a 2-inch line, and cut it off before the meter and rehook up everything and put something in there and put a T basically to put a meter hookup on. You'd need to have plumbing involved behind it too, so that it would be able to hold the weight of the meter and the structures and everything else, all the stuff. But I don't know of anybody that has any separate hookups now or anything like that. I was telling today, that guy, Bob Prophet from Bourne, he said, geez, let me know if you guys can do it, because he said, I'd love to do something like that around here. He said to keep the pumpage down.
So it's something that's feasible. And then on the separate meter, we just charge the higher rates because it's irrigation water.
Yeah, it would be something to that effect. Yeah. And I believe 671 is one of the people that inquired about putting a well in. They told us that they were going to investigate it just to see if it would be feasible for them because of the prices they're paying over there.
And I would just add, I know I did get a copy of a Town of Chatham article where they did consider this, separate meters for irrigation. I don't know if it got enacted or not, but when I was searching around per your question, Commissioner Hoppenstedt, I wanted to see if there were other communities that had done this. I know that Chatham at least considered it. And I just opened on my computer a draft of a regulation, but I don't know if it's been adopted or not.
Okay. And we at least have a model of one in our village.
Yes.
Yeah.
On Main Street, which is nice because we know it can be done. It might cost the property owners plumbing, but if they want to use town district water for that,
Yep.
it gives them that alternative. And that's also something that we could phase into all existing irrigators as well. So we're not just hitting the new people that want to add irrigation. We're actually hitting the people that irrigate now and that are obviously irrigating at high rates based on our pumpage.
That's right.
And I think that's where we're going to be able to make some inroads in dropping that pumpage volume. I just don't think we're going to get much bang for that buck by saying it's all going to be on the backs of new hookups. I'm really skeptical about that.
Okay, well, if there's no more on this, I'm going to again suggest that we hold off on obviously any decisions on this until Commissioner Robinson returns. Jen?
I just wanted to add two things. As we had talked about last meeting with possibly doing, providing some relief for commercial food prep businesses in the district, having that separate meter to charge a separate irrigation rate would keep things cleaner from a billing perspective, because you would be able to identify what is domestic household use or food prep use versus what is an irrigation use to apply those higher irrigation rates.
Thank you.
And then secondly, I do think we should do some targeted outreach to these 20% of the users. And if someone wants to help me draft some language for that, I think that I would be glad to start sending out those communications or work at trying to, gather some information on that. I would just need some help coming up with the language to really get the message across.
Right. Well, Jen, first of all, I would be happy to help you with that. But secondly, that's a good segue to the other item related to this, and that is the intern. We did get the district vote to approve our budget. That does include some money for an internship to do research on this, which I would envision would include an inventory of how many systems we have out there, which I don't think we know at this point. And also to develop a public outreach program, as I think you're suggesting, Jen, on how to target and make sure that people understand their options and, educational and frankly, even include the so-called fertigation approach. I think there's some potential benefits to that really are going to, if we want to pursue that, are going to require some outreach and education. So I think you're absolutely right.
And even in conjunction with the voluntary conservation order that we're going to put in place,
Yep.
in the next day or so, to see if we can do something immediately to reduce that demand.
Yeah. So I guess another related action item, I don't know that we need a full vote on this or not, but we did suggest the idea of an internship, and we do have the money. And Chris and I talked today, there may be some Cape Cod Tech connections. I'm looking at some of the universities, including Tufts, where I teach, and reaching out to see if I believe that money is available July 1st. And I would almost suggest, regardless of where we go with the regulation, that's worthwhile research on number of systems and outreach programs and more information on fertigation wells, et cetera, that would be really valuable. So I think that's something that I would like to see if we can move forward with, because by the time we meet next time in July, we will already be into that funding option. And as we all know, the summer goes by way too fast.
Yeah.
And some of this inventory, I think, needs to happen during the summer while the irrigation systems are in process. So I guess I'd like some thoughts and endorsement on us moving forward with that internship.
Just a sec. It just dawned on me with this voluntary restrictions. If people are following it, that intern's going to have to go down the same street twice, 2 days in a row, and everything. So I mean, I'm trying to tell people to stop doing it. We're hiring someone to go watch and see who is doing it, I guess, basically.
Right.
Just a little information. I just thought of that when I was going through. So they had mentioned that whoever was on the board, I think he said, was also on a board at another college that had interns also. I'm not sure if it was Bridgewater or something like that. I think it was Bridgewater, he said.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Cynthia.
I think I just have a question. Not to put anything else on your.
I'm sorry, Cynthia, we're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, this is going to be this computer. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
Okay, it's a quick question. Have you guys thought about a way to protect your income if you raise water rates so it doesn't go into the district's free cash?
I don't know.
Jen, could you? I did not hear the question, Jen. Could you repeat it if you heard it?
Could you type it into the chat, Cynthia?
Is there
Yeah.
a chat option?
I believe she asked if there was a way that
To protect the revenue, I got that far.
from going into the district's free cash, I
Oh,
believe is what was the
if we
question.
raise
was.
the rates, okay.
So what is the question, Jen?
So right now, when we collect water revenues, it all goes into the district's free cash. And she's asking if we raise the rates and are collecting even more revenue, which I think to some degree, as you were saying, Scott, we're going to have more expense with treatment and facilities, but one may happen before the other. How do we protect some of that revenue that's going into free cash?
That's a great question. That's a
To either
great
lower the
question.
tax rate.
And I know that the town of Barnstable has a so-called reserve fund for their wastewater program, where they're saving money, if you will. It's like a savings account, which I think is what you're suggesting, because clearly there's likely to be some upcoming expenses. So that's a great question. I don't know the answer to it, but Tom?
Well, I've given that a little bit of thought. I haven't done the research that I should have because I've been doing other things. No excuses, but I just haven't done it. And it would be interesting to see if we couldn't roll any excess funds, and excess meaning in addition to what we collect now. So anything that's generated as a result of the increase in funds could go into our stabilization fund for the water department, because we do have that stabilization fund set up, and that's where the meter fees go into now. So
Jen,
yeah,
could I ask you to look into that? I think
yeah,
that's a
that
great
might be
suggestion.
an avenue for that, and then we could earmark that money within the
Yep.
fund, and that's a kind of a question for Ray. Could we earmark that for treatment, additional pump stations, whatever, but related to water quality and water quantity provisions?
That's a great idea. And Cynthia just put something in the chat here. Let's just make sure that we've got the full. Yeah, okay. Good. Thank you, Cynthia. Any other comments right now on this item, this agenda item? Again, I want to postpone any decisions, obviously, until Commissioner Robinson rejoins us.
Do we have a job description for the intern?
I did draft a preliminary one, but I think as we'll talk about later tonight on source water protection, I think it probably needs to be amended and updated. But Jen, could you make sure we share that with certainly the commissioners if we haven't already done that? I thought we had, but my apologies.
It was in
my
last month's
apologies.
stuff,
Probably
yeah.
did. And I just
Well, let's circulate it again, and because I think this is a moving target and something we need to act on soon.
Might have it in my download folder here. Let me look.
I mean,
Okay, you
I would almost suggest, given the timing, that maybe we want to talk about going forward with this internship if we're in agreement with it in general, and then agree that we'll revisit the detailed scope at the next meeting, because frankly, it's unlikely we'll have somebody on board that quickly. But I do think, given the summer season moving quickly, that my thought would be we'd certainly want to move forward on it in terms of agreeing to go outreach and try to find a candidate at this point. But I think let's circulate the draft job description that I provided, Jen, and I fully believe that it needs to be updated and amended, and look forward to everybody's input into that.
This is what I have from our last meeting.
A little larger, please.
Yes. Maybe. Not sure I can zoom anymore on this one.
Yeah, I think this needs a lot more detail, but
Okay, so they just opened.
maybe scroll down a little bit, Jen, just because the second paragraph really gets to the details of what we had proposed, what I was thinking about. So it's a GIS inventory, public education strategy. I think that's pretty much all I had at that point.
Yeah, landscape and usage.
But I think we certainly want to detail this further.
Yeah, add in some of the public outreach needs. And I mean, if you're talking about a couple of months for a summer internship, so I don't think you can put too much into the job description, but you
Right.
also want to leave
Right,
it
I think,
where Chris can utilize this person to the best of his needs.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe we said 10 weeks. We were thinking over the summer.
Yeah.
So do we need a commissioner's vote on this to move forward with this, or is this something that we can move forward? I mean, I just want to make sure that we don't delay this too long such that it becomes sort of a too late situation.
You need a salary on there. I think you need
Right.
to have
Yeah, we had said $15. We had to put that on there.
Oops.
$1 per hour. That should be on there. I think it should come from the Katuah Water Commission. Sorry, Scott.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. No.
Consultant.
Yep.
Yeah, why don't you make when Mark gets back on, try to make a decision on at least to hire to make that and we'll put the particulars down after. So we can put something out so we can get somebody in and started, maybe even, or get some interviews or something like that by the next meeting. We can have everything out.
Yeah,
My apologies for not having it more detailed for tonight.
I think it's great. I appreciate that you did it, and it could be as simple as that it's an intern to work on water quantity and quality issues for the department, right?
Yeah.
Including inventory of uses and working with property owners to increase their awareness of our issues and
Yep.
surveys of potential source problems.
I think that makes sense. So,
One thing that came up at district meeting too was that, as we acquire, which it looks like we're going to do, the property at the school, we might want to look at that property as an alternative extraction site. If they tear that building down, I think we're well outside of, is it 300-foot radius?
You could have a 400-foot radius for a zone 1, yeah.
400-foot radius?
Yeah.
Find that on that property, but I don't know. I mean, that's something that an internship could do some GIS work or some measuring on.
We could look that up on Google Earth probably.
On Google Earth, and
Yeah.
that doesn't pull from the Little River watershed.
No.
That pulls
Yeah.
from Rushy Marsh side.
well, it strikes me that we have no shortage of need and things that the intern could do. So my suggestion would be that we move ahead with starting to look for the intern and put this on the agenda for the next meeting to go through detailed scope, and ideally, if we can find a person that quickly, to talk to them about detailing the scope of what they're going to do for the rest of the summer. But I think if we want to seize on the opportunity here, we need to move on it, is my suggestion. So I don't know if we need a motion here for this or not.
We wanna
And
wait for Commissioner Robinson, or shall we?
we can do that. We can do that. Sure.
I think
So
we
ma-
could work directly with whoever the chairman is on finalizing the job description, and then maybe the vote would be to hire as of July 1st or July 15th or whatever the date may be.
I would agree with that, given the time constraints here. My sense is that we're all in agreement that there's a lot to do and the timing is short. So that's a great suggestion, Jen. And we can wait. We can get Mark to, when Commissioner Robinson returns, to take a formal vote. But I think that sounds like a good planned direction here, given the timing.
And I think you just have to basically also say that you're forming the intern position
Right.
to do this, so that
Yes.
you can, yeah.
Why don't we move on to the next item and postpone, unless there's any further discussion on irrigation. Chris, I don't know exactly, other than the cost item that I mentioned earlier.
Here comes Mark.
Oh, good. Okay. Maybe we'll wait for a second then. He's joining us right now.
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, welcome back. Good timing. We just had a pretty detailed discussion about the irrigation policy, and I'll try to summarize it in 2 minutes or less. We don't have to repeat everything, but I think you're still considering the regulation. I think my sense is there's general agreement on either prohibition on new connections, or, as Commissioner Hoppenstadt suggested tonight, maybe some opportunity for new connections if they're willing to add a meter and pay the higher rates. And the second, and perhaps most important component, would be that this is driven by a higher rate structure. And I would say a significantly higher rate structure. Jen has done some calculations she sent around earlier today, with the highest 3 tiers being $15, $20, and $25. That I personally think would be somewhat of an incentive to try to move people, some people, not all, but some people, off the system. So I guess we were close to the point of I was close to the point of asking if there might be any movement on this tonight. But these are the rates that Jen analyzed, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at this, Commissioner Robinson, in advance, but the bottom scenario is the 15, 20, 25. And not only do we think that this would be a significant incentive to move people off the system, not everybody, but some people, but it would also generate enough revenue such that if people do not move off the system, we'd have enough money to either find a new source and or to provide treatment if in fact this excess pumping or additional pumping might cause treatment. So that's my quick summary of where we've been tonight. Maybe I'll just ask Commissioner Hoppenstadt to make sure that I've correctly characterized the discussion before we go any further.
Yeah, I think you did a great job, as usual, Scott. Thank you.
So Commissioner Robinson, do you want to weigh, it's not to put you on the spot?
Yeah,
You're
no,
flying around.
I looked at that. I looked at that proposal, and I think that that's what I was suggesting at our last meeting, that they would be significantly higher as an inducement for people to put in their own wells or not irrigate so much. But no, I think that I would go with the highest rate proposal there. I think it's, remember, we can always adjust it down later or adjust it in many different ways, but I think we need some experience. We've shown that the increase in rates that we did a couple of years ago has not reduced the demand. In fact, we're seeing increased demand. So obviously, we need to do something else, and I think that this might get people's attention.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of that highest rate structure. I think it will affect about a fifth to 21% of the customers. So it's not going to affect most people, which was important consideration to me. And I think we all need to learn how to conserve. And if you know, people don't like regulations, then the only other way to handle it is through pricing. And I think that this is the way to go. So I wouldn't be in favor of eliminating people who are already on the system. I think that they will see in their bills that they need to conserve or move to a different source. And I do think that there shouldn't be new hookups, but there should be some kind of a waiver system, that, you know, a hardship kind of thing that we might encounter. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, and I'll just add that Jen did remind us that I had also put in the table relative to this new rate structure that we might waive, speaking of waivers, the food provider industry from these new rates. But as Jen also correctly reminded us, some of them also have irrigation systems. So the thought there would be to require meters for those three food organizations, such that they could pay two different rates. But my proposal would be to still exempt the other food providers from the higher rates. So that's what I'm suggesting. And I don't know if there might be a motion tonight or whether we want to continue this, but I think that's where we're at. And again, I'll just add, given Chris's report earlier, frankly, I think we need to do something. We're, you know, things are going the wrong direction here.
Right.
And
so do we have the full final policy with these new numbers, or do you have to vote with an amendment, or what?
You mean the details?
Do we have a final document that incorporates all these things?
We don't. Jen showed the latest regulation. It does include the preamble that our attorney agreed was a good preamble and focus. I think what I would suggest, if we can agree on the components, we could redraft the details and either defer that to the chair to implement or bring it to the next meeting if we want to postpone until July.
I think we need a final document. I think this is a good last discussion.
Okay.
And I think that we can vote in principle that these are the changes that we want to see into the draft policy.
Okay.
And have a final version prepared no later than 2 weeks before our next meeting, so that the public has a chance to look at it if they want to.
Okay, well, I will be happy to commit to doing that with Jen's wonderful assistance, and we'll get that submitted before the next meeting for hopefully a vote up or down.
I think it should be available on the website 2 weeks before the meeting.
Good suggestion.
And with a note that it's to be voted on at the July Water Commission.
All right.
Did you take any public comment tonight?
Actually, a little bit, but let's ask again now. If anybody, we don't have a lot of public here, but we have a few. Anybody have any input on this?
I think you're going in the right direction. I really think it's wonderful. My only question is the 22, do you know, Jen, or do we waiting for this intern to know if the 22% of the homes that are above do they all have irrigation?
We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. Okay. Not that it matters, it's just a question.
I think it's a great question because I think it's definitely going to matter, because if they don't, then it's probably not
Something
gonna,
else going on.
It is
Yeah.
likely but not confirmed.
Yeah, I think it's likely, but it is a good question, Carol.
And
And I
It's-
think it also underscores the value of the internship research.
Correct. That-
Let's get the-
I was
let's get
just
the
going to say,
facts.
sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
moratorium up next week. Do you guys have to extend it?
Say
That's
again?
what I was going to add. So the vote
moratorium,
that,
I think, is up next week, so I think you need to extend it if you don't have this in place tonight.
the
Correct.
vote that you may need to take tonight is to either extend the moratorium or retire it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Thank you. Wow.
Well,
Here we-
I was just going to also say that that 21% that Jen's come up with, we know exactly what houses those are for that intern to go out and drive right
Right.
to them, and can go and look from the street to see if they have irrigation systems. Some of
Well,
them might have, we used to make notes if they had them too. And I'm not sure, Jen, if that's still in.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we might be able to tell by some of them without even having to go out and look, just if they're still active.
Well, let me suggest entertaining a motion to extend the moratorium for one more month, and that we will take a vote on this up or down next month. Does that seem like a reasonable approach? And if so, anybody would like to move that?
so moved.
Second?
Second, again, with the idea that it would be available on the web 2 weeks
Yep.
before the meeting.
Jen, please, let's talk tomorrow. Get this done quickly and post it. I think it's a great idea. And this conversation, it's been a long haul, but I think we're ending up in a really good place. So I really appreciate everybody's input and ideas. This is a challenging issue, but I'm really happy that we're taking it on squarely. So
We haven't talked about swimming pools. I mean, I don't know if swimming pools are a factor, but I wonder how many of those 21% top tier people, maybe they have irrigation and pools. Who knows? I mean, it's
Chris mentioned that to me today.
Yeah, swimming pools aren't really an issue unless they get a leak. Then they're adding a lot of water to them. When the liner splits or they get a leak inside that has to be fixed, that's when they get to be a big issue. And one gentleman said he turned his pool off last year, covered it when he opened it up. This year it was dry and everything was cracked and broken because he had a leak in it, and he knew that he had a leak because he had to add I think he said 2,000 gallons a week to it or something like that because it kept going down. So that's when they get to be an issue. Other than that, it's just evaporation and topping them off a little.
I would like to just make sure that we include in the proposed regulation the alternative for somebody to add a separate meter at their cost, be charged the higher rate for that meter for irrigation, and let's see, what was the other? There was another part to it. And that I don't know if we want to put this in there now, but I think that should eventually apply to all irrigators, not just the people that are the last ones over the fence. I don't think that you can. I don't think we're going to get much savings by applying it to new hookups.
Okay, we'll include that. Okay, well, let's move on to the next agenda item, which I think we may have covered in part anyways, the PFOA, PFOS, future testing and treatment. Chris, do you have any comments on this for starters, where we're at?
Yeah, we're not required to take a test till October.
Okay,
And there right now, if we take one now, it would be solely on us. Of course, we'd be paying for it and everything. But I don't know if it would be helpful to us or not at this point.
okay. I think we're in relatively good shape so far, but this is
Right.
obviously something that people are talking a lot about, and it does relate actually to the next item. So unless people have questions or comments on that specifically, I'd like to talk for a couple minutes about this source water protection plan. So I'll just jump into that. Chris and I talked today, and I had a very good conversation with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Young from the Massachusetts Rural Water Association, who has contacted us and is offering to help develop a source water protection plan. I think this guy could provide some really good services. And I talked to him about possibly integrating the internship work that we're thinking about doing this summer, as well as possibly a graduate student that I might be able to identify through my Tufts connection in the fall. This would be a 6 to 9 month process of developing a plan to address issues and threats. And the three things that we talked about are sodium issues. And he talked quite a bit about some really good outreach programs to minimize salting with both the state and the town. He's been involved in this in many other rural communities where this has been an issue. We talked about PFAS and PFOA and emerging contaminants and septic systems. And I informed him about the fact that we now have a very good groundwater model that identifies particular properties and septic systems that probably contribute on a more regular basis. And maybe we could target those homeowners for upgrades of septic systems through some sort of an incentive program. And we also talked about, the irrigation policy and a number of other items. So he has a grant, I think, from EPA to do this work, no charge to us. And I would like to offer that I would work with him and again, through my connections with the university students, as well as the internship, to start working on this plan. It's probably something that would kick off in the next month or two, unless you know more than I, Chris. I think that's a little up in the air.
He's
But,
he's planning on coming down mid-July to do a walk around through the well field and everything.
yeah.
He's already been down and took some information from us. That we sent him some information, and he wants to do a walkthrough mid-July, one of them nice rainy days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's all good, and there's no cost to the water department. And I think it would be a really good process to go through. And I'm offering to be, again, the point person on this, to work with him and report back to the commissioners on it. So questions, comments? Commissioner Robinson, you're muted.
I think every water supplier is supposed to have a swap plan approved by the DEP. And I don't know how old ours is, but it probably should be updated. And if you can get it done for free, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the intent here. Yep.
And it does help. We do want to go for any kind of grants. It's good to have on your resume and everything also. It's a requirement, I believe.
I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank both of you guys for spearheading this. I think that's, and volunteering to work with Mr. Young on this. It'd be great.
Chris, do you know if he's coming down before our next commissioners meeting, third week of July?
I
Offhand?
am going to be off the week of the 4th, and
Okay.
he said he's going to be busy. He's doing some stuff up in the Northeast regions right now of New
Yeah.
England. So, of Mass. So he said that he wouldn't be done with that till about July, and he knows I'm going to be off that first or second
All
week.
right.
So he's going to plan on coming down sometime after that. He was going to
Okay.
reconnect with me on that.
Okay, well, why don't we just keep this on the agenda, and I'd be happy to be along with
Sure.
Chris, just to kind of update and report on this. But my guess is we can get going on this July or August.
Yep.
And again, the intent would be to develop a plan that might be before us. I had suggested to him by the calendar year, but his grant does go until the spring, until April, I think he said. So
Nice.
I think that's all we need on that tonight, just more informational. And that brings us to something we really already talked about, the review existing rate structure. I think we've covered that, unless Jen, unless I'm wrong, there's not anything else there we need to talk about. But it sounds like we're in agreement, at least to consider a draft of an irrigation policy that would integrate some higher rates for those higher users. So I'll work with, again, as part of what I already volunteered, I'll work with Jen on getting something together there. I guess I'm really volunteering Jen here for most of it. She's, as we all know, does a lot of the work efficiently. So I don't know if there's any more discussion on water rates. I think we've covered that pretty well. Okay, well, that's great. We got through all the old business. And again, I'm excited where we're at on a few of these items. So look forward to the next meeting where we can hopefully take some action. And that leads us to new business. And the first item on the agenda is elect new chair. And I'll just say in advance of that the Horsley administration has been very happy with what we've done here, and really enjoyed working with Chris and Jen tremendously. They're amazing. Made my job really quite easy and fun.
See, we told you.
You did. But as I inferred at the last meeting, I think it's department tradition to hand this baton once per year. And it seems to me that Commissioner Hoppenstadt, who agreed to re-elect and serve more time, is well qualified. And so I would, as the outgoing chair, would nominate him as the new chair and see if there's either a motion or a second on that, and go from there.
Chairman, I think I should, before we discuss, I should make the motion. You should second it, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
I make a strong motion to endorse Mr. Hoppenstadt as the chair for the coming year.
And
I second that. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I'm happy to do that, and I'm honored to do that for the district and alongside of the two of you. I feel very privileged. But I also want to point out that this was something that that former Commissioner Campbell, recently deceased Don Campbell, wanted to see the district do. And I think he had some real vision with this process, and I think it's helpful for all the commissioners. It helps for the district as well, so that the citizenship has access to all of us and knows that we're all in this together, and we can step in at any time and serve in this role. And I think that was really some wonderful foresight on his part.
Thank you. Okay, well, I guess we should take a vote on this. So we have a motion to elect Tom Hoppenstadt as the new chair of the Water Commissioners. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Tom, I guess you can vote on that.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Aye.
And look forward to working with you over the next year.
Thank you. Likewise.
Absolutely. We also need to elect a new policy advisor and a bylaw committee member. And maybe I'll ask both of the two other commissioners who are more senior than I, in terms of service with the water commissioners, not necessarily by age, for direction on how we elect these two positions. If there's a motion.
So if you're not chair, you have to serve on one of these committees.
I understand that.
I was on the bylaw committee this year. It doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to serve on that again. It's up to you, Scott.
I'm good either way. I mean, frankly, I'm very interested in this source water protection program, and would like to suggest that I focus a fair amount of my extracurricular time outside the meeting on that, but I'm happy to do either or of these other two. I don't know.
There's not a lot of heavy lifting on either committee. I think.
Right.
Once or
I don't know
twice.
does the source water protection fit into policy advisor? I don't know.
Why don't you do policy and I'll stay on bylaw for now?
That sounds good to me. I'm happy with that. Do we need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion for that.
I think just a sign, yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, well, that leads us to additional public comment. Again, we really appreciate public being here.
We have to do the
wait.
lien list.
Two more
Oh, sorry.
items.
Go ahead. What did I miss? What did I miss?
So I have
Oh,
actually
the
a
lien
matter,
list. I'm sorry.
the
I'm
lien
sorry.
list and a matter not anticipated that I just got today.
I'm
So
sorry.
let me
Go ahead, Jen.
share my screen again here. So on May 25th, I sent out certified letters to our residents who are more than 365 days past due. There was 37 accounts for a total of $12,502.59. 8 accounts have been collected already, and right now the total outstanding is $10,193.62. In the letter, I state that we will be reviewing them at this meeting, and that I will issue another demand letter in July. And if that is not responded to by the August meeting, they will be submitted to the town for a lien against the property. So you all have the list. So that is just my intention on that. Stop sharing. So really no action on that other than to say the letters have been sent and here's where we stand with them. I also included in the packet our current financials so that you can see what our expenditures to date are and our collected revenue to date is as well. Share one more time. So then today I did get a request for a leak adjustment that I will share with you as well. Here is the letter received from a resident. The leak actually took place in January of 2020. The resident has been traveling back and forth between Boston and New York, and when he received his lien letter, decided it was time to address it. He is asking for consideration on the leak. Let me just get to the detail page here. This was the amount of the original bill, $1,459.50, which represented 185,000 gallons of water used. 2 of our operators went over and found a toilet that was leaking that the resident couldn't hear. We actually made the repair by doing some tightening for him and replaced the meter at the same time. And as you can see, the usage dropped right back down to his normal usage. So the leak, the usage was definitely attributed to that leak. Applying our newly adopted leak adjustment policy, this is the resulting adjustment. And as a measure of good faith, he has already written me a check for this amount. I have made it clear that I have no authority to approve that the commissioners would need to, but he wanted you to know that he is willing to take accountability for the usage at the leak rate.
Hey, Jen, I have 2 quick questions. One is, how is it that our staff is able to get in or detect the details of the problem? And maybe I'm misunderstanding. It sounded like this happened without the homeowner being there. They were able to find out a leaking toilet. If that's true, how do we have access to figure that out?
So he was home.
Okay.
And again, we found it in January of 2020, which was when we did the excess readings, the excess use reading for the July to December period. He had been away for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
He came home, got his bill, said this can't be right. We sent somebody over to do some investigating, and they found the leak in the toilet. The gentleman was a bit hard of hearing and not able to hear the toilet running.
See, okay. So it was while he was there.
Yes, we entered the house while he was there.
Gotcha. And my second question is, and I'm just trying to remember, did we not discuss in the revised policy some differentiation between in-house leaks versus exterior leaks? Am I recalling that correctly?
We did, yes.
And if so, can you remind me or us, if I'm not the only one having trouble remembering, what that policy was or is?
So the regular usage or the regular leak adjustment policy was that the homeowner was responsible for double their highest usage. And in this gentleman's ownership, His highest previous usage was 97,000 gallons in a 12-month period. So that would represent the same 97,000 gallons in a 6-month period. That would be 97,000 gallons would be double. We talked about at the commissioner's discretion using a 5-year average. That was the issue that one of the previous homeowners had with an outdoor leak. It wasn't quite double their highest usage, and was actually being penalized for identifying and fixing an
Right.
indoor leak when it
Right.
wasn't an irrigation leak.
Okay, thank you. Those are the two questions I have. Other commissioners, questions, comments?
I would support the adjustment as indicated here on the screen by Jen.
Okay.
I move that we adopt it.
Is there a second on that motion?
Tom's muted.
Sorry about that. I was sneezing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom, is that a second?
I will
or
second that motion.
Comment? Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Jen, thank you for preparing this. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Anything else on the lien list?
I don't think you need anything on that from us.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. So we're on to additional public comment. And again, we really appreciate the public being here. And Matt, thank you for being here. Anybody? Anything?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Robinson, Commissioner Robinson.
just point of information that I did attend the district school committee subcommittee of last week, I guess, or 2 weeks maybe. And they basically, it is a negotiating committee, so I can't speak too much about it, but it is moving forward with negotiations with the town, given the positive vote at the district meeting in May. So as part of that, I have prepared a draft of a conservation restriction. It's similar, but not mimicking the restriction that the district already holds through the Water Commission on the 19 acres around Lowell Park, in which the district provided $325,000, I think, to help purchase the land around Lowell Park for conservation owned by the Barnstable Land Trust. So I took that document and updated it with some of the new model conservation restriction language that the state prefers now. And there are quirks also as how town of Barnstable likes its conservation restrictions to look. So this was a rough draft just to get that on the board, on the plate for the school committee to look at. Obviously, it needs lots of punching up, but anyway, it does exist now as a straw man for people to look at. So, and I think the point of this was that while we were asking the town for the school itself and some acreage around it, that the playing fields and the to the extent that the town keeps any of the forest would be under a conservation restriction for conservation and recreation. So that's the idea that I think they were looking for. I already see a mistake here. It says Putnam Ave, so it's supposed to be 140 Old Oyster Road. So anyway, there are things that need to be done here, but I'll keep working on it, and then we can show it to other people.
Thank you for preparing that. I've had a couple of conversations with people about this project in the last few weeks, and it sounds like things were moving forward, but there's still a lot of questions. My understanding is they're process of bringing on an architect, Rick Finuccio, I forget his new firm name, to look at some options for the property. But I don't know a lot more than that. Tom, you may know more, having served on that committee. but it sounds like things are moving forward, and I just reiterated our consistent position here that, we're in favor of the project as long as there's, no water quality impacts, and we're happy to weigh in on that. I don't know if there's more. Thank you for doing that. I think the conservation restriction makes all kinds of sense. Should we send that along to,
Not yet, not yet. I want to look at it some more.
okay,
Um,
okay.
But I promised Commissioner Hoppenstead and felt obligated to provide something.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for that, Mark. That was a huge job. I'm sure for me, it would have been weeks of wading through papers and trying to figure it out right. And I really appreciate you doing that. And I hope once you feel that you're comfortable with it, you'll forward it to Jim, Dan Hauser, and Fran Parks, our chair people for that elementary school.
Yeah, well, we'll all take a look at it too, but we don't even know if the town will accept it as a negotiating point, but at least they'll understand what it is as a document.
And Jim and Fran are spearheading the negotiations along with others on the committee. So it's very timely and quite helpful.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
Very good. Other public comment?
Will
Yeah.
you be staying on the Katuitt School, or will one of the other commissioners be taking on that?
That's a good question.
I think they have enough on their plates. If they certainly, particularly Mark, if he'd like to wade into the foray, since they're starting to do the conservation restrictions and such, I think that would be more than welcome by the committee. But if I know he's busy with other things as well. So if he wants me to stay on that, I'm happy to do so.
I think I found a niche in a way I can help with the restriction, but I'd rather not be on the committee.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other additional public comment from anybody?
If there's no public comment, I just had a couple of quick comments to make. I don't know if Jen, I know that I think we did receive a nice card from former Commissioner Campbell's wife too, for the flowers and stuff that was sent to the funeral and everything. I just wanted to tell you guys that we had got that back. I think it was today in the mail. And yesterday, I believe it was, I met our newly elected Prudential Committee member, Mark Lynch. He came over. We met for about 2 hours. He took a little ride around to see the district so we could get a little more. He wanted to see a little more with Little River and everything. He read the report and everything. So he seems like he's really going to be into making sure everything's great. A very nice guy. So we spent a couple hours together yesterday and driving around and going over some, he's picked my brain for a little bit. I don't know how well he did, but yeah.
Thanks for doing that, Chris.
Yep.
Okay, any other public comment?
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Horsley for a job well done over the past year. It's, you got 1 year under your belt and you're thrust into the fire, and you've come out great. And I think there's nothing like learned by doing. And I think serving as chair, you really learn a lot more about the inner workings of the department and just how great the staff is. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I did. And thank you for that, Mark. I really did enjoy it, and I did learn a lot. And you're right. I really liked to Commissioner Hoppenstadt's comment earlier. I think this process makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I feel like I'm much more knowledgeable now about the details of how things work, and looking forward to serving in the Hoppenstadt administration moving forward.
It's called the Hoppenstadt regime, as I recall.
Appreciate that.
All right. Well, thanks. This is a great meeting, and I really appreciate other people the public joining us here. Carol will miss you if you send a substitute, but please join us anytime. And Cynthia and Amy and Matt, thank you for being here. And I'll entertain a motion.
Next meeting.
Oh, thank you. Next meeting. See.
So next meeting in person at Freedom Hall. Any time change?
same time, Mark, as suits you,
Well,
5:45?
I mean, if you prefer it a little earlier, that's fine too. I can do 5:30. I have a little more flexibility.
Are we looking at the 21st July
I believe so. That's the third Wednesday.
or Wednesday?
Can you make it in person and Zoom, please?
Yeah, we'll do the hybrid. I'll get
Thank-
trained.
Thank you.
So we're looking at July 21st at 5:30. Is that what we're saying?
Like,
Sorry?
I can make that.
I can make that. I'll be leaving right after that. I'm going to Minnesota for a few days, but that date works. 5:30.
We'll switch to 5:30 on July 21st.
So Scott, that means we're committing to have the draft policy on the website by the 7th?
The irrigation policy?
Yeah,
Yes, that's
And-
fine.
just know that we're going to be doing meter readings on the 30th and preparing bills. So there's a small window like the 29th, 30th, 1st and 2nd that it's going to be crazy at the office. Okay.
Well, let's talk tomorrow, Jen, and figure out a schedule that works for you, and I'll make sure we'll get this done.
Yeah, the more we can do before the week of the
Yep.
28th would be great.
I
for
have
me.
time this week, the rest of this week, to try to wrap this up. Okay.
Great, great. All right. Now you can
Right.
entertain a motion.
All right. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
I think
Woohoo.
so.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
All right, folks.